Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of Gateway and Abu Dhabi Ports, it's my real pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar, Digital Transformation of Global Trade. I'm Ethna Trainer, and I'm going to be your MC and indeed your moderator for this session. We have a full hour and really a dynamic conversation. We're thrilled that you're with us. We have a great content-driven session ahead of us where we're going to be taking a closer look at the importance of global trade and really looking very, very carefully at how digital advancements are actually accelerating the digitization of customs. Now, this, of course, to ensure better supply chain resilience and indeed future preparedness, as well as increasing the volume of international trade. We're also going to be taking a look at how port community systems, single windows, and digitalization are really bringing about levels of stakeholder cooperation, and actually how they are creating an unprecedented era of knowledge sharing and of data exchange. All of this so important for us. Throughout the event, I'm sure many of you will have questions that you'd like to share with our panel. You can see the great panel of experts that we have here. So really do look at the Q&A section of the web platform and make sure you just fill in whatever question you have, and I will certainly do my best to make sure that that question gets to whoever you want to answer it. We have a really wonderful lineup of expert speakers today, and of course, our special guests come from, as you can see, leading organizations around the world. So let's get started, and indeed, it is my great pleasure to begin with an opening address. We're very delighted to have him with us. The Group CEO of Abu Dhabi Ports, please welcome Captain Mohammed Al-Shamsi.
Thank you all. It's my great pleasure to be here virtually with all of you today on behalf of all of us here at Abu Dhabi Ports. Over the course of the past year, the world has faced a truly unusual chapter in human history. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant effect on global trade, delivering a stark new reality in which governments, organizations, businesses, and indeed individuals have needed to be agile in navigating a new environment. Disruption and change have taken their toll on traditional supply chains, and globalization remains in a state of flux. But let us be quite clear. The reports of its end are greatly exaggerated. Despite the rising tides of protectionism, trends of which we have all witnessed around the world over the past half-decade, it is fair to propose that we are nevertheless also observing that globalization structure remains sound and that it is proving to endure. I am convinced that central to its continuing success is the tremendous technological advancement made in recent times in the digital field. We can clearly see that the acceleration of digital adoption is enabling all those involved in global trade, including those exchanging, transmitting, and selling goods, services, technology, and finance, to adopt their business models to an era of a new normal post-COVID-19. The pandemic is triggering transformation, an influx of innovative online tools and platforms, regional, inter-transparent single windows such as I Maqta Gateways, ATLP, many-sided green frameworks and partnerships, and digital protocols offer us all a glimpse of what we can expect in the years ahead. For us here at Abu Dhabi Ports, our long-term growth strategy and our digitalization benchmarks are far from being mutually exclusive. We understand that digital is inspiring new thinking that does not propose problems, but that results in actionable opportunities. So, as we enter the post-pandemic period, let us be confident about the potential of a more digitally connected world and Abu Dhabi's place within it, one in which those that invest in digital infrastructure and embrace cross-border digital trade now will be the ones that gain the most in the future. Thank you.
And Captain Mohammed, thank you so much. indeed talking about there the acceleration of the digital adaptation in this industry. And again, I loved what you said there. Digital is inspiring new thinking. So much potential that's going to happen. And as you say, Abu Dhabi has a great role to play within that. Now we have an hour just about, and we have 4 great speakers. So just let me quickly tell you what we're doing. We're going to be hearing from Abu Dhabi Ports, from Maqta Gateway. We're also going to be hearing from IPCSA, the World Trade Organization, and the World Customs Organization. So each of them will give just a quick presentation and really let you know what's going on and the key highlights in terms of what they're working on at the moment and what's very important and what will indeed add value to your profession, to your life, and indeed when we look at the transformation of global trade. And then we'll take time to have a good half-hour, hopefully, discussion. And that's where I want to make sure that you get your questions in, and we'll do our best to get them in. So first, let me introduce our first speaker from the World Customs Organization. The Deputy Secretary General joins us now. So Ricardo Trevino. Ricardo, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Edne, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for the invitation, and thanks for hosting us today.
Now, you do have a great presentation. We're really looking forward to it. And then after that, we'll hear from our other speakers, and we're going to come back to you and make sure we get everybody in the panel discussion afterwards. So Ricardo, I'm handing over to you.
Thank you very much. Thanks again. And of course, well, first of all, let me talk a little bit about what the World Customs Organization is and what we're doing here and why we want to contribute to today's discussion and today's debate. The World Customs Organization is an organization that was created almost 70 years ago. It started with basically European countries creating this organization for coordination of customs matters. Today, we are a truly global organization. We have 183 members. This is around 99% of international trade already. And of course, we are in our main objectives is to set the international standards on customs procedures on the one hand, on the other hand, to foster cooperation, but also we provide capacity building to our members. Now, regarding today's discussion on digital customs and supply chain resilience, the WCO and customs administrations, of course, are in the center, are in the middle of this item, and we have a lot to contribute. We've been working already for some years in harmonizing our procedures, and today I might want to focus on 2 main tools of the WCO that we are promoting and that our members are implementing accordingly. The first is, of course, the single window. Our single window tool, which is also, of course, mentioned within the TFA of WTO, which is one of the tools that we based our coordinated border management portfolio. And the single window, it's basically a IT solution in which you can incorporate several border agencies to have one single point of contact with business, with trade. So we have a complete coordinated border management. In most of the cases, of course, customs is leading the implementation of this single window tool. And but the next step is not only to be a single window within the national framework. The next step, and when single windows achieve enough maturity, should be to incorporate interoperability with other customs administrations, making this a global network of customs at the end, in which exchange of information is the basis, of course, for facilitation, but also for compliance. And here, of course, customs is making a big effort in producing this coordination. Now, the second tool I want to talk about very briefly in this first comment, and it's linked with the single window. It's how you do and how you implement this exchange of information. Well, you do it through a data model. And this is our data model tool, which we started already several years ago. It was a G7 proposal from almost 20 years ago. And from then, WCO has developed this tool and has already implemented several versions. We're currently actually in a big major update of our data model tool, which is, of course, feeding through the single window so that the data exchange is harmonized and the data exchange is efficient. And therefore, of course, we have interoperability, not only, as I was saying, among other agencies in the border, but also potentially with other customs administrations. So we have several stages of maturity and phases in which we are providing assistance to our members so that at the end, the single window and data model projects can lead us to better exchange of information and, of course, set the basis for a complete digital customs and resilience in the supply chain. I would leave it right now over there, Edne, for the rest of our colleagues that are in this panel, which I greet today from here. I talked to you from Brussels. I'm very happy to join you, and I'm looking forward to hear the rest of our colleagues today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And indeed, we're really looking forward to hearing more about particularly those tools there, the single window and the data model projects, in terms of the added value that really everybody is looking for, everybody needs. And again, that only digital can deliver. We're going to continue this conversation now and really be looking at digital disruption. And I'm very happy to welcome for this presentation from the World Trade Organization. We have with us Senior Analyst for Economic Research and Statistics Division, Emmanuel Gans. So Emmanuel, we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, and delighted to be here. Digital disruption. Well, global trade is still very labor and paper intensive. There are about 4 billion paper documents generated as a result of trade activity. And it has been estimated that shipping a container from Mombasa to Rotterdam generates a pile of paper that is 25 centimeters high. So still a lot of work to be done, and this is where digitalization comes in. It can be truly transformative, especially in the transportation and logistics sector. There are about 80% of goods traded internationally that are transported by sea. So clearly, transportation, maritime transport is critical. It's the backbone of international trade. We published in 2018 a World Trade report on the future of world trade and how digital technologies are transforming global commerce. And what we show in this report is that new technologies like Internet of Things, AI, so artificial intelligence, and blockchain can significantly reduce trade costs. And this is not negligible because transport and logistics costs account, according to our calculations, for half of overall trade costs, with transport costs accounting for the largest share, almost 40%, and logistic costs more than 10%. And so what we did in this study was to try and see what impact digital technologies could have and try also to quantify that impact. And our projections predict that trade could grow by 2 percentage points more until 2030 as a result of falling trade costs, due to a very large extent by the use of digital technologies. And so that would amount to accumulated growth of 31 to 34 percentage points over 15 years. So a clear benefit of digitalization, a clear boost to world trade, particularly important in the transportation and logistics sectors, and clear benefits also for small businesses and developing countries. Now, how can digital technologies transform global trade and transportation and logistics? I would flag 3 main impacts. The first one is greater operational efficiency and optimization. IoT sensors, for example, can reduce the cost of global trade by increasing the efficiency of shipping and transport, and even more so when combined with AI. So you can reduce the amount of goods being lost because you can track the temperature, for example. If you track the container, it enables you to optimize routes. Even more when you use AI. You can detect faults using AI, even prevent faults. And so it's not a surprise that big companies like Maersk and others are now using them quite regularly to try and optimize their operations. So that's the first big transformation. The second one is that we see the emergence of new services and business models. So not only can you detect faults and prevent them, so you can anticipate, But it also allows those shipping companies, for example, to offer new services because they can notify the customers, discuss possible corrective actions immediately. And so instead of just shipping the goods, they actually offer value-added advisory services to customers. And the third big transformation goes back to the very first point that I was making on the paper-intensive dimension of trade. These technologies can help global trade go paperless, and therefore it can facilitate trade. Ricardo was referring to the Trade Facilitation Agreement. There are a whole range of new opportunities that these technologies open, in particular technology like blockchain. Why? Because it allows all the actors to interact on a peer-to-peer basis directly in a highly secure environment. And so it removes many inefficiencies from the system. Instead of having a series of bilateral handshakes, you can have one global handshake. Second, because it makes it easier to digitize trade documents and prevent fraud. And we've seen many cases of fraud in Asia recently regarding bills of lading, for example. Now, with ELT, you don't have this double spending problem anymore. So you can really bring digitalization to a new level. So you can cut the cost of filing, verification, processing, and coordination costs for cross-border trade. So we've seen the emergence of a number of consortia and initiatives in that space, trade lanes, for example, between IBM and Maersk, now GSBN in Asia, quite a few also in trade finance, which is a critical component of international trade. There's UTC in the region. So many new opportunities, which is very good news for global trade. But, and I would like to finish with that, technology is only a tool. We need more than the technology to make it happen. So what do we need? We need collaboration between the different actors. You need all the countries to join in. You need to be two to tango. It's the same thing with international trade because it involves different jurisdictions. You need interoperability, and Ricardo touched upon that very briefly in his introductory remarks. It's very important for the different systems to speak to one another, and this is where the issues like data models are critical, the importance of developing data models. And third, we need a conducive regulatory framework. There are discussions at the WTO in the context of the joint statement initiative on e-commerce to try to put in place some rules for the recognition of e-signatures, e-documents, etc. And so we really need this element as well to make it happen and for digital technologies to truly transform global trade. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And just as you said there, what I love that one global handshake. And really, when we look at the capabilities of what digital can do, I think it's not that long ago, we remember, as you said, stacks of paperwork. And I'm sure it's very clear in some people's mind, but you know, the efficiency that this will bring into play is just so important. So great, we're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes. Now I'm absolutely delighted to introduce the chairman from the Customs Committee from IPCSA. We have with us Uwe Liebschner, and Uwe is actually going to be really looking at logistics in terms of going digital, but also a buzzword there that I think Emmanuel picked up on too, cooperation. It's something I think we all need. So I'm going to hand over to you, Uwe.
Thank you, Edna. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone who is listening to us today. First of all, I'd like to thank Abu Dhabi Ports for inviting us as IPCSA and giving me the possibility to bring some thoughts out of our industry into the discussion today. Where to start? Next slide, please. Sarah? Yeah, thank you. I think it's not a surprise, I guess, when I highlight in the beginning that the fact of living in a world of global trade and economic networks, the demand on a well-organized global supply chain is one of the key figures but also challenges. Next slide, please. Edna mentioned it in the intro because I'm the chair of the Customs Committee of IPCSA. Please allow me to focus myself on some main topics regarding the role of customs in the whole process. First of all, I think it's not a question. Customs is one of the key players in the supply chain. Why? Because customs is that administration who decides finally about the movement of the goods. Are they allowed to move on? Yes or no? In cooperation with trade, we should not forget that there is a core mandate of customs that they have to fulfill, but also to find the right balance to support prosperity of society and reduce burdens for trade. Next slide. Oh, sorry, we are already there. Again, one back. Thank you, Sarah. Sorry, my mistake. So please allow me to highlight some few topics. What are, from my point of view, are important in the whole discussion. First of all, there is an increase in the demand of safety and security, but somehow customs is there in a kind of a harsh challenge to balance that safety and security measures against giving the right or a proper scheme of trade facilitation. The next one, what I like to highlight today is really the question how to balance out monitoring, which is also one of the very important tasks for customs against trusted partnership. When I say against, that doesn't mean we are going now to fight between monitoring and trusted partnership, but we should more and more change the mindset in the direction of moving away from transaction-based models to system-based models, and more and more putting effort into AEO schemes or programs around the globe, but also in the mutual recognition of that AEO programs. The last topic on that slide is, from my point of view, very important because we should not misunderstand or make that mistake that we think granting or giving in the legal framework more simplified procedures that we are going to extend or making progress dramatically on bringing us forward by having simplified procedures granted. It is more in nowadays world, and I think Emmanuel was telling that very well, more a smart use of electronic infrastructure, which we should take more and more into account and into consideration. So next slide, thank you. So digitization as the key facilitating trade. Next slide, please. Here you can see some thoughts where we think as an association, and I also personally, that these are main figures or main topics when we are talking about digitization, but also how to improve supply chains globally. First of all, integration. Of course, customs administrations, when we are talking again about the public sector side, have comprehensive risk and rule engines in place. They have declaration systems, everything fine. But at the end of the day, it is really a question of how they are linked together with all the players in the border scheme. In Europe, we call customs the border champion, but there are a lot of other partner competent administrations involved in the process, and how the question is really how they are integrated into the whole of the declarations process and clearance process. Integration is then also not only on the side of the administrative bodies, also in the private sector, and we should not make that mistake that there is a nice integration on the one side and a nice integration on the other side. So the linkage to the operational side is one of the key elements in the whole of the discussion. We heard already from the previous speakers about single window. Yes, network approach is behind the single window. Maybe there is some irritation in the discussion, what is a single window and who is talking about a single window and who is needing which kind of single window. But again, I think from our perspective, it is more to understand that behind the whole concept of a single window, there is a principle of linking systems together and making the process much more smoothly and burdenless. Next bullet point here, data exchange. I don't want to go in all the details, what I have written down here on the slide. But I think one of the big challenges nowadays is cross-border data exchange, which we should bring more and more into the focus of our common discussions. And also, I think Ricardo mentioned it in his intro or in his presentation, harmonization. Yes, what is it really about? Because in a lot of the cases, we hear that customs organizations around the globe are happy with their data models and happy with their efforts on harmonization. But is that really enough? And I'm not looking now only on customs. I think more about the private sector, who is obliged to deliver the data to make then the whole clearance process running smoothly. So I can talk for hours about that point. Please allow me the last one. Automatization, of course, is also one topic what we should more and more take into the consideration. Everybody's talking about Industry 4.0, about on-sequence delivery, 24/7 principles, and so on and so forth. But we should really, look carefully on what is automatization about and what is there really the necessary steps to take. At the end of the day, it's again about linkage of the systems. So please, next slide. Thank you. Some examples of initiatives, digital approaches going on at the moment on a global scheme, transport data in electronic form, and so on and so forth. So e-fighters initiative by the UN, ETIR for transit. Of course, PCSs and single window projects worldwide are now rising up like Phoenix. It's a little bit also because of COVID, after COVID, worldwide there's a recognition of we have to step away from the paper-based activities. Data pipelines, trusted trade lanes initiatives. The EU, for instance, is doing something with China on that to enhance their risk management. And last but not least, that is an initiative out of our business, of our association, Network of Trusted Networks. PCS and single window operators act anyway as trusted partners in their local and domestic markets. And why not connecting them together worldwide to have a data exchange cross-border between that PCS operators? Please, next slide. Thank you very much. So at the end, I would like to congratulate Abu Dhabi and Maqta Gateway for making a great progress on that whole activity. Launched the PCS not that far ago. Looking on what they have reached and what the progress is in Abu Dhabi, it's great to see. Abu Dhabi is also not only a member of IPCSA, but also a member of the Network of Trusted Networks initiative. So we are looking really forward into the future to have the first exchange of data on our Network of Trusted Network initiative by also having Abu Dhabi on board. Yeah, thank you very much for the moment, and I'm pleased then to answer to your questions afterwards. Thank you.
Uwe, thank you so much there. And again, so much. I love the way you put customs in light of being the border champion. And again, looking at safety and security, trusted partnerships, simplified procedures, I think all absolutely essential for efficiency and effectiveness. And this is a natural segue into the CEO of Maqta Gateway and the head of the digital cluster here at Abu Dhabi Ports. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce now to us all here and hear from Dr. Noura Al-Dahri. So Dr. Noura, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Etna, and thank you for all my colleagues who have been discussing this very important topic. And thank you for all our audience who have joined us today in this very short time in order to discuss very briefly the power of data sharing to facilitate trade. Next slide, please, Sarah. So I think it's very important to know that we as a human being, we tend to forget, right? So before 2020, in 2019 and before, when we are about to discuss anything related to digital, to any traditional industry, there are two types of conversations that come into place. Either that they look at it as a threat, it will disrupt their business, it will take their employees out of jobs, or some of them will look at it as an opportunity, right? That they can produce new services, they can diversify their offering. Now, after 2020, I think the situation have completely changed. We are not supposed to look at the digitalization as only threat or opportunity. It's proven to be, after the pandemic, as a must to have in order to ensure the business continuity of any company or industry. Next slide, please. Next slide, Sarah. So I think we have heard from the previous speakers, esteemed speakers who are coming from different international organizations. And it's very important to notice that those international organizations has not been advocating for digitalization only now after the pandemic. This effort has been ongoing for the past decades, and a lot of effort was to discuss the implementation of the single window solution across all the world. I think one of the statistics that are very important here to remember that 15% of the value of the global trade are being lost in an annual basis because of the delays in the border procedure. So next slide, please. Next slide, Sarah. So the importance of the single window, if I want to summarize it, like in very few points, right? So it's a win-win solution to everyone. For the importer, exporter, investors, trade, you're going to have an access to the data. You will going to have predictability, less uncertainty. You will know exactly when to ship, where to locate, how the procedures are going, and overall fewer delays and fewer costs. And as for the government and the participating entities, it's not just a matter of having less resources or improved service level and less paper, but it also can improve security and can give the decision makers a very important tool in order to decide, especially in times like during the pandemic. Next slide, please. Next slide, Sarah. So this brought us to our own version of the single window as Abu Dhabi. Of course, the efforts of building a single window and of digitalizing the government services has been going for few years and decades in Abu Dhabi and in beyond in the United Arab Emirates. But specifically what we have done in Abu Dhabi, we have moved our traditional port community system now to a full trade and logistics platform that specifically was during the pandemic when His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Mohammed bin Zayed have inaugurated the single window across not just sea, air, land, and rail, border crossing, but also all the industrial zone, all the free zone, and all the added value service, whether it's being trade financing, insurance, and other, all provided from a single platform. Next, please. Next slide. So this is some just the screenshots about the coming ATLP, or our Advanced Trade and Logistics Platform. I think it's fair to say that since we started the journey very recently, comparing to the other countries worldwide, we did have those conversations in the International Port Community System Association and in other platforms in order to pick up on all the lessons learned and to build something that is advanced, customizable, and suitable for our country. So as you can see, the fancy screen behind us, just a snapshot of how also, as Emanuela was saying, using AI, using the advanced technology, we can bring more value to our single windows as well. Next slide, please. Sarah? Sarah, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, I think this is just a very high-level blueprint of what we are doing in Abu Dhabi. Basically, all the trade operator, all the economic operator are accessing from a single window that are linked to other ports and single windows, whether are in Belgium, in China. We're also building our connectivity to India currently, and it's also feeding to all the backbone of our trade from air, sea, land, border crossing, all the way to the customs, all the custom-related authorities, and to take it all the way to the warehouse, industrial zone, and free zone, all within one single window. We're talking about more than 700 main services, in addition to added value services as well. Next slide, please. Sarah, next slide. So far what we have done is more than 40 million transactions. Now, it's very interesting to know that 10% of those 40 million has been done during the pandemic. So the adoption rate have jumped to 99% because of the COVID pandemic. And it's very important to notice that following the international discussion that we have with our fellow single window builder and association and reputed worldwide organization, one key factor of our success was to listen to our customer suggestions. So we are implementing 80% of their suggestions so far. And it's very important to know that this was a key to our success, because we are listening to what the customer wants and we are tailor-making the solution to them. And of course, we are linked now as part of the IPCSA and other agreement. We are linked to 11 international ports around the world, and we're building more linkage as well in order to get the information from the source. Next slide, please. Sarah, next slide. So I think, again, maybe this is our hub to everyone who is playing on the supply chain a very important role, that we are in the verge of cooperation, and we have to be able to communicate in order to excel, all of us. And this includes sessions like this and webinars like this, where we exchange thoughts and ideas about how we can be better and how we can communicate better. Next, please. I think there is a delay from my side, or so this is our final hopes and thoughts, that we know that the pandemic will soon end, but we will adapt to a new normal. And in this new normal, we should not forget the lesson learned from the pandemic, that digitalization is a key for us to continue and survive in the coming era. I thank you so much, and back to you, Etna.
Indeed, thank you so much. And I'm just so impressed there with the advanced trade and logistics platform. I think that blueprint you showed us there really demonstrates like all of the, everybody that you brought together here, and actually pulling it together in terms of that single window. It's very clear how you've demonstrated that, Dr. Noura. Thank you so much. And again, as you said, it's really about building that efficiency and effectiveness and that huge cooperation. You can't do this alone. There's no point operating in a silo in Abu Dhabi. It's not possible. It's about being part of the big international link. So thank you so much. Now, we've heard from every one of you. Let's get down to our conversation. Again, Ricardo, World Customs Organization, Emmanuel from the World Trade Organization, Uwe from IPCSA, and Dr. Noura from Maqta Gateway there. So thank you all for giving us your presentation. And Ricardo, if I can come to you just to get this conversation started, without a doubt, and I think we have huge support there for the concept of the single window. It's without a doubt I think it's what has to happen. But talk to us a little bit more in terms of how, PCS and the single window operators, how that actually really enhances the cooperation with the customs authorities.
Sure, of course. Well, as I was saying, the single window it's a tool which serves basically as a contact point for business operators, but it also serves as a tool that can exchange information, and depending on the development of the tool, you could also use this information, this data, to have some analysis and even produce some kind of risk management. So as we all know, in the supply chain, there are several stakeholders that play different roles. I think every stakeholder in the supply chain has the same objective of streamlining and harmonizing the procedure, of facilitating the whole process. But as Uwe said, probably here one of the main or the key elements would be to make customs the champion in borders, and to lead with the single window. What we have experienced in the WCO and with our members is that when customs is empowered to be the champion to implement the single window, and there's political will to do this, it is a very efficient tool in coordinating, in harmonizing, in facilitating the process. Let's don't forget that at the end, this was also mentioned, at the end, customs has an obligation of compliance and enforcement. And with that comes facilitation. So if you comply, things are easier, things are facilitated. So for us, of course, we have to make it easy as well to comply. So it's basically you have to comply and facilitate at the same time, as it was mentioned, and kind of getting the right balance there. But the single window helps to do this, helps facilitating the process of complying, and at the same time facilitates the whole process of release in the customs procedure. So I would say this would be, and of course the use of technology itself, which is the basis for the single window and other tools, is currently a key element as well for facilitation and for resilience of the supply chain.
Absolutely. Emmanuel, you had talked a lot about disruption in the industry at the moment. And indeed, when you look at some of the disruptive ideas that are out there, let's have a look at IoT, big data solutions with real-time data, how they add value to digital transformation. Again, share with us, what do you think is the most important right now?
Oh, it's a very broad question that you're asking me. As I said, I think these new technologies open a lot of new opportunities, but as I completely agree with Dr. Nora, it's a must in the current context. You cannot do without. So yes, they bring new opportunities. It has become a must, but we need to accompany them and need to make sure that the right ecosystem is put in place for this technology to truly make a difference. And I think what is really needed at this stage is that I think it was Uwe who was talking about the network approach, and I used the term the one global handshake. What we've seen is that technology has still been used to a certain extent in silo by different sectors. So you have initiatives in trade finance, you have initiatives in transportation logistics, you have initiatives at the level of customs. But what we're missing from a global trade perspective is to connect the dots and to make sure that these different initiatives are compatible and that they can be integrated so that we can have true digitalization from end to end. And this is what we're still missing to a certain extent. We're getting there, but I think we need to do more work in that respect to try and truly digitalize end to end by having the different stakeholders work together. And the question of single windows is very interesting. It's a very powerful tool to facilitate trade, yes, and customs are clearly central. What we see is a trend, and single windows were the strict definition, the narrow definition is B2G and G2G. So business to government and government to government. What we see, and Dr. Noura mentioned it very clearly, is the extension of this single window principle to offer a number of other services that are of interest to companies. And this is particularly important for small businesses indeed. So you would have one single entry point and you can access a wide range of services. So it's a way of connecting the dots. So we're moving in the right direction, but I think more needs to be done in that respect.
And I think everybody would agree with you there. And not only in this industry, I do think digitalization at the moment, we're seeing it right across the board in all industries. It's a process that needs probably a little bit of a push from everybody. And Uwe, ultimately, what we want to do is improve the supply chain globally, and this is what needs to happen. When we look at what has happened because of the pandemic as well, do you think that port authorities are actually, moving faster and really adopting digitalization of operations? How has actually the pandemic shifted this? We've seen some great figures there, but globally, is it actually moving in the right direction?
Yeah, thank you for that question. First of all, we have to say that port authorities realized several years ago that there is something what they have to put effort in to go the way of digitalization. The key elements or the key words are here: autonomous sailing, berth planning automatically, the volumes rising up, connection to the hinterlands with having monitored corridors, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of things already going on, not to forget the smart port initiatives around the globe. I can now create a list of examples, Antwerp, Hamburg, but we don't have to go that far away, because we heard now in the presentation of Noura that Abu Dhabi, as I said as well, did a good job, a very good job. In a very limited time frame, they made the right progress, and that was more or less all supported by the Port Authority. But not only to mention advanced countries and advanced environments, looking on what the initiatives nowadays are planned and supported by the development banks around the globe, then I have to say that especially for developing countries in Africa, in Asia, Southern America, there is a kind of an explosion around that topic of digitalization, single window, and very interesting for us as an association, port community. That is really a big thing. And of course, COVID now made the whole thing more, I would like to say, accounting and CEO or management levels are very often looking on their money, where to spend and how to spend. But when then comes something what is an international trend and makes, I say it now with my words, very meaningful and worth to support, then you see that everybody is jumping on the train. And that is really happening nowadays, that really that headline of digitization is bringing or pushing the whole thing now in pace around the globe, and especially also in developing countries. We have there also some examples from African countries and Asia where it is really on a very good and very fast track at the moment. Yeah, thank you.
And I think all the developing countries want that. You can see whereby there's high-tech loading in one port and perhaps then manual unloading in another, and really you need it streamlined. You can't actually do that. Dr. Noura,
simply the fact of having the Chinese initiative of Belt and Road, that is what brings developing countries into that situation of we want to take part in the whole thing, and we want to have our piece of the cake. Yeah, thanks.
Again, to enhance trade, globally, ultimately. Noura, again, I know, we just heard from Uwe there talking about the great work Abu Dhabi has done in terms of making progress, but I know you've been working on this for quite a while. It didn't happen overnight. But talk to us about, the importance of data collaboration. You mentioned it there, if you can elaborate a bit more. And also getting that stakeholder buy-in into sharing data. It's not always maybe the first thing that we think of in terms of everybody with open arms saying, sure, have my data. Talk to us a little bit about how you bring people together to do that.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Etna. And I really like the discussion here when we talk about what Uwe have said. It's truly that the single window are rising like a phoenix now because of many impact. Pandemic is one of them, the Silk Road, and a lot of awareness are being put into the importance of the single window, and a lot of the least developed countries are now building those single windows. But as Emanuela also said, that the devil is in the details, and it's very important that when we build the single window, we really focus on the value that we bring to the trade, like the SMEs and like the new basically investors, etc. So our definition of the single window should not only be limited to the custom solution or to the port community system. Our definition should be always focusing on the value. And this is back to your question, Etna. How do you convince a stakeholder, right, to adapt or to share data? The way that we have been doing it is by, showing them the value, taking them by hand through, proof of concept, pilot project, showing how the time can be reduced in order to encourage them to share the data. Because again, I think when you explain the single window concept to someone who is not from that background, they will, it will be hard to them to see what is a single window, what does it do? But when you really show them that everything around you, including the screens that you're looking at now, have came through import and export, and all of this has been enabled by the trade facilitation and the single window, then they will start to understand. And to prove what we have done during the pandemic specifically, and maybe this is one of the factors why the PCS have transformed to a wider project in air, land, and all of the aspects during the pandemic, because we did have the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure. We were able, with the help of the Hub Consortium and the help of Etihad Airway and Abu Dhabi Port, we were able to move 12.5 million vaccine to more than 31 countries using the data visibility that are tracking the temperature, tracking the location, tracking even the paper and the document, and facilitating the approval from the health authority, the approval from the custom authority in a very short time. We're talking about 6 months now since the year started, when we started the Hub Consortium. Within this 6 months, we did have the digital technology in order to do that. So this is what I think is a key message for the stakeholders to remember. A single window is not just a virtual magic. It's what enables your food to come to you. It's what enables the vaccine to reach you. And this is why it's very important to have this collaboration and to share the information and to see the value.
Indeed, and I think the success of the Hope Consortium is such an example of how everybody came together and you really pushed that initiative out there, and it was a tremendous success because it needed to be a success and everybody played their role. We only have about 8 minutes left in this. I know the time is absolutely flying, but Uwe, keeping, if I can come back to you, Uwe, first, and a rather quick answer on the rest of these questions, if I may ask you all. Looking at secure data, I mean, Dr. Noura is talking about the need for data exchange. I believe the IPCSA has actually launched the network of trusted networks, so to speak. Talk to us a little bit about that and how that actually gives everybody more confidence to share data.
Yeah, thank you. I think we have to extend now our session for the next few hours. I try to be brief. One of the challenges nowadays when we are talking about data exchange, and of course, especially when it comes to different countries and different cultures, then the governance model is one of the most important things. So technology is, of course, needed, but technology is, as Emanuela said today, it's a tool. But the problem and the challenge is really the governance model behind that. And that was the starting point for us as an association to think about the fact, on the one hand, PCS operators and single window operators are acting more or less as a single window hub in their local environment for their ports or for their airports, and how to make it now happen that they are all creating a network together to exchange data then worldwide, out of with their experiences, but out of their local environment and their local limitations. And that was the launching point, to come together and to create a kind of a platform which is not purely a technical or a technological thing. It is more a discussion around how to set up the right governance model to exchange that data amongst the participants. And only to make it with an example, because we have limited time, when somebody in Australia is asking for a port order in the port of Rotterdam or whatever, Le Havre, then via that construction, he is able, and he is not in that position to call each and every port then to get in bilateral agreement. So he is then simply asking his PCS operator in his local environment if he's going to be connected and if he's offering that service. And that is then the step forward to have functionalities, but also data exchange. And we have customs here today. Maybe also when I think about administration side and public sector side, then maybe the collaboration between us will then be much more closer, not only on local level, because of, as I mentioned today, risk, safety, security measurements, risk management, getting more data from different sources. I think that is also one of the key elements what is customs looking for nowadays. So in a nutshell.
Yes, indeed, so much there. And as you said, we could go on for hours on this. Maybe we'll have the opportunity sometime to actually go into depth with this. And indeed we will. We will carry on this for maybe a few extra minutes here. So stay with us. Ricardo, when we look at the end goal, I suppose, in terms of what WCO wants, talk to me about changing this traditional, custom models. What do you want to see happen in the long term?
Thanks. Well, I want to see customs that are not perceived, non-intrusive customs. I want to see customs that are with IT solutions embedded under DNA. I want to see customs that are exchanging efficiently their information. They are trusted information providers and counselors of their own national governments. And I see customs really leading the transformation towards smart borders. That's how I see customs. And of course, when I talk about this, and I know technology is a tool, of course, but technology has to be in the center, and we are now as WCO trying to assist and lead our members towards adopting these new technologies as Internet of Things, blockchain, and the whole digitalization process and data analytics. So that's how we see customs in the future. Now, just to wrap up, and I just want to thank the
I'll come
organizers.
back to you for a wrap up. Don't worry, I'll come back for a wrap up.
Just want to thank Abu Dhabi Ports and Maqta Gateway for the invitation today. Thanks.
Stay with us. Stay with us. You're not going anywhere yet because we've got an extension on this just for a few more minutes. So stay with us. And again, just Emmanuel, when you look, how do you get all of the countries involved? We're looking at different countries at different level of development, indeed. And again, when we want everybody to look at digitalization in terms of looking at trade flows, what's the response that you're getting from everybody?
So how do we get all the countries involved? Good question. It's a challenge, as you said, because countries have different levels of development, different approaches to technology. But we try. I think it's critical to have this dialogue, and we try to have it at the WTO. In the context of the Trade Facilitation Committee, where there are discussions on trade facilitation, in the context of the Joint Statement Initiative on e-commerce, and having that dialogue is critical. But what I would like to say is that I think we need more of a multi-stakeholder approach on these issues and really collaboration on these issues. So yes, governments have a key role to play in putting in place the regulatory framework that will be conducive to the development of these technologies, but we need all the different parties involved. So customs clearly have a critical role to play, but the private sector likewise. So what we need, I think, at this stage is really what I would say, what I would call supply chain thinking. Think end to end from the supply chain. Customs is one key element, but you have a number of other actors there. And what we need is really a multi-stakeholder dialogue and approach on these issues. So we need more collaboration, I believe, between the WTO and other organizations and the private sector on these issues.
Without a doubt. We are going to wrap this up. So just, I would like a few quick words from each of you. Uwe, if I might start with you in terms of, and as short as you can in terms of what do we need to be doing right now, this week, this month, this year, to make sure that we're in this for the long term and we can see success for the industry.
Okay, I'm talking now in bullet points. Start with cooperation, community approach, cross-border exchange, then the political mandate and having the responsible drivers really pointed that when we are going into that initiatives. The legal framework, have you got the real legal framework in place? And technology, yes, but please combination with organizational redesigns and the new organizational flows. I think I can extend that list easily, but that's for the time being.
Later, we'll come back to you. Ricardo, I promised you that we were going to give you a little wrap up there. So give it to me in 30 seconds, if you will.
Thanks a lot. I would just wanted to thank for this initiative, this important initiative, to Maqta Gateway and to Abu Dhabi ports, and of course to UAE Customs Authority that have also endorsed me on this invitation. To end, I would just say, let's just keep in mind as trade and stakeholders of trade that we should, after the lessons learned in the recent months, we should keep our mind open. We should be flexible. We should be adaptable, agile, and of course think about how technology, of course, is a challenge, but also is the solution to face many challenges. Thank you for this wonderful coordination of this panel, and thank you to my colleagues as well for sharing today's experience.
And thank you to Emmanuel. When we think, there's so much to be done, but where are the small wins, I suppose, that people can get to work on right away to make sure they're moving in the right direction?
Yeah, so first, I would say I completely agree with the list that we're, the different points that he mentioned, his list. And I would add to it, I think it's very important to work on data models for all trade documents and processes. And we're still missing some elements there. And I would add another dimension, which we haven't really touched upon, but there were some references to developing countries and LDCs. I think we need to address the digital divide. We've seen that the pandemic has accelerated digitalization, that it can have huge benefits. But the fact is that a number of people in these worlds still do not have access to the internet, or at least to high-speed internet. So I think if we want to digitalize trade, we need to address that point as well. So these would be the 2 points that I would add to Uwe's list. And
I think
thank you for this.
Everything must rise together. Thank you so much. And Dr. Noura, you're our dear host for this session too. So I want to give you the last word again in terms of what everybody can do to actually rise together and make sure that it's a win-win for everybody for the years to come.
Thank you, Etna, and thank you all our guest speakers. I think we have to acknowledge that we are, as countries who are in the position to speak about all of these advancements, regardless to what entity are we belonging, we are fortunate, right? We are fortunate to have this infrastructure. We're fortunate to have this discussion. I think it's an obligation toward improving everyone's, I will say, status in every country in the globe, and to ensure that, very important goods like vaccine will arrive safely and securely across the globe, is to have all of us working together, making awareness, advocating, and also extending the support that is needed when it's needed for those countries in order to facilitate the trade. We're all part of a single supply chain. We are all linked as a humanity, and the supply chain is as strong as its weakest link.
What wonderful words to close on there, and I think very, very encouraging that we all need to pay attention to. So, I mean, here we hear from all of you, cooperation, you know, really putting that legal framework in place. The technology will get us so far. We need the talent to make sure you work with it. That organizational, you know, flexibility as well, the adaptability, agility, all of that too, and really bringing all those data models together. So much that we have to look at, and indeed so much for the industry to make sure that they begin to work on right away, because I think there's a sense of urgency here as well. I want to thank Ricardo Trevino from World Customs Organization. Great to have you with us. Emmanuel Gane from the World Trade Organization, Uwe Liebschner from IPCSA, and of course, Dr. Noura Al-Dahri from Maqta Gateway, Abu Dhabi Ports here. Huge thanks to all of you. Again, thanks to our dear audience for joining us. And from my part, on behalf of Maqta Gateway and the Abu Dhabi Ports, you know, I just want to thank you all for being with us. We're going to have more events in the future. We're going to stay interactive, keep these dynamic discussions going, and maybe even we'll get longer ones in place for the next time. So once again, to all my guests and to all of you and our dear technical team for keeping us on the air as well. Thank you so much. Have a great day, have a productive day, and keep an eye on what we're doing at Abu Dhabi Ports. Thank you.